I was excited to push the play button because my heater is not going right now. Yay! All right, let's talk about aggression. What I'm feeling towards my noisy heater. All right. There we go. So there are different kinds of aggression. Instrumental aggression is really common among, babies and toddlers where they want something. In this case, these two kids are fighting over a doll. And if it happens to be the case that one of them gets hurt as a function of, they're striving to get the doll, that was completely incidental. They didn't do it on purpose. All their behaviors were directed at getting what they want, in this case, the doll. So we're not really talking about that when we talk about aggression, because if anybody gets hurt, it's not on purpose, really. That wasn't the intent. What we're more concerned about is like hostile aggression, where the intention of the behavior is to hurt the other person, right? Like I'm pulling your hair because I want you to be in pain. I hit you because I want you to be in pain. I say these mean words to you because I want your feelings to be hurt, right? That's hostile aggression. And then there's relational aggression, which is where we want to try and marginalize the object of our, anger. So we want them to not have any friends. And so we spread malicious rumors, or we tell them, I don't want to be your friend, or other kinds of things to try and isolate them and make them feel lonely and sad through that. So we've got these three different kinds of aggression. We're going to focus in on hostile and relational aggression. So when we talk about aggression, a lot of times people notice that when we talk about physical aggression, it tends to be males who do it more often. And then within that, we see it sort of being perpetuated down family lines. And if you look at aggression taking its worst case scenario, where you have an adult who engages in assault or murder, we do see sort of family patterns, right? So people have looked to see whether, is there a genetic component to aggression? Are some people sort of like inherently more aggressive because of the way that their DNA is designed? Well, some recent research came out in the last about 10 years that found that there is a genotype called the MAOA-L genotype that seems to be associated with reactive aggression, which is going to be hostile aggression, but it was the person felt baited into it. Like something caused them to snap and have their angry outburst. And then impulsive violence, where the person just lashes out without thinking. Again, there might be something that they feel justified in being angry about, but they're not thinking. They're just sort of acting on their baser, id impulse, right? Well, what they've discovered is that the MAOA-L genotype seems to activate the amygdala, which you can see down here in this diagram, is this little orange area right here. I guess that's orange, I don't know, some shade of red. The amygdala is this little almond-shaped area, and you've got one on the left hemisphere and one on the right hemisphere of your brain. And it has for a long time been known to be associated with aggression and fear. Two different regions of the amygdala and two different like polar opposite responses. If you have a hyperactive amygdala in the aggression area, you find that the person behaves more aggressively, that they have more of a hair trigger, anger reflex, right? So the amygdala may be being governed by the MAOA-L genotype. And then the other thing is the hyporeactive prefrontal regulatory functions. Oh, right? We all knew that. What that's talking about is this purple area in the front, the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that thinks to itself, maybe I shouldn't do this. Is this socially appropriate? Is there something else I could do that would be more productive? So the prefrontal cortex normally is the part of our brain that puts a damper on these impulses that come out of our amygdala. Well, if you have a hyperactive amygdala and an underactive prefrontal cortex, those two things can combine to produce these kinds of aggressive acts like reactive aggression and impulsive violence. So it's possible that our genes may set us up based on how those genes have sort of shaped our brains. So it's possible that we've got genetic factors, but they are definitely working through the neural factors, the brain. Also, biochemistry has been looked at because, like I said, on average, physical aggression has been associated with males much more frequently than with females. It's minimum 10 times as likely that a male will have had a physical aggressive outburst than a female will have. It's at least 10 times. It might be 20 times more. I can't remember the exact statistics. So why would that be? Well, one factor in biochemistry is hormones. And we've talked a little bit about how in the womb, testosterone masculinizes the brain. And so here we have an example from mice. We're not allowed to do stuff like this to humans, so we're studying mice. The aggression that we're going to be measuring is biting attacks. That's on the y-axis. And then we have across time on the x-axis. So we have an intact pair of male mice in the cage together. They call that the pre-castration area because they're just normal adult mice. And you see that the number of biting attacks escalates over the time that the mice get placed into the same cage. The blue area where the biting attacks really drop down, they've castrated the mice. And so they no longer are getting testosterone from their testicles. And so you see all of a sudden they're really not fighting with each other at all. Then they start giving them testosterone therapy, where they start giving them 150 micrograms per day of testosterone and put them back in the cage together, and look at what happens. They start biting each other again. Okay, so in mice, it looks like testosterone fuels aggression. It's a lot more complicated for humans. You can't take away a male's testosterone and see suddenly he no longer has aggression. That's not how it works. We have men in the world today who are experiencing low testosterone because of treatment for prostate cancer or for other reasons where they're actually given testosterone blockers. People who are transitioning from male to female will have testosterone blockers, and you do not see a commensurate drop in their aggressiveness or their anger like you see with these mice. There's other factors that go into aggression for humans besides just testosterone, but it certainly plays a role, that's for sure, because we do see that males tend to be more physically aggressive than females. Probably it happened in the prenatal womb when the brain was being masculinized, and then it probably is going to happen again at puberty, which we haven't gotten to yet in this in this lifespan yet, but that's going to be another opportunity for the brain to get further masculinized. Alcohol is another biochemical effect because what alcohol does is serves as a depressant, so that the frontal lobe of the brain that normally would tell you, I don't think we should be doing this, sort of loses its power, right? It's a little bit slower to react. And so sometimes, we see that people get more aggressive when they're consuming alcohol. Now, hopefully this is not happening in the 6 to 12-year-olds or the 6 to puberty people that we're talking about right now in this lifespan, but it's one of those factors that can contribute to aggression in adults, hopefully. So aggression is influenced by aversive conditions. You're probably aware that when it's hotter, you are crankier, right? If it's, if the conditions are somehow aversive for you, you're not comfortable, it's punishing, there's a really loud noise that you can't escape, there's a bad smell in the room, these kinds of things, we call these aversive conditions, and these can actually fuel aggression because people get they've had it. It's just too much, I've had it. Sometimes we get reinforced for our aggressive behavior. Here I've got an example where they're doing relational aggression on this poor kid. And the kids who are being aggressive and isolating that kid, they get to feel good because they're all doing it together. They feel like they're part of a group. They're actually getting reinforced for that behavior because of the scenario, right? And so a lot of times we inadvertently reinforce aggressive behavior by let's say the aggressive kid wants to steal your lunch money. Well, they get reinforced for their aggressive behavior because guess what? They got your lunch money, right? So it's like it fuels itself because they're like, well, I'm more likely to do that behavior in the future because I got something out of it this time. Aggressive models would be another source of aggressive behavior. You might be familiar with Bandura's study with the Bobo doll. These are some stills from the actual experiment where the adult in the top is throwing Bobo, she's hitting Bobo with a hammer, and then you see the little boy in the bottom imitating exactly the things that the adult had done. And the thing that's important in the Bandura study to mention is that Bandura let a bunch of children play with Bobo, just free play, do whatever you want, and none of the children in that free play threw Bobo, and none of them hit Bobo with the hammer. So that's why they came up with those actions for the adult to model. So the fact that the kids are doing those after having seen the model shows you that they got the idea from the model. Like, none of the kids spontaneously came up with that, but all the kids came up with the idea of imitating it when they saw a model do it. So when we see people behaving in aggressive ways, we internalize that, and especially if we look up to that model or we think that model is somebody important or impressive, we're really likely to imitate those behaviors and include them in our repertoire. There are social scripts that can influence aggression. You get to a certain point in a confrontation where the script tells you we either have to get into some kind of physical thing or we have to walk away. And if walking away doesn't really present itself, like if that's not where this particular script is going, then we're going to have to fight, right? Like, we're going to have a physical altercation or whatever. And so social scripts can sometimes lock us into, and social scripts are things that we know from having watched TV or having seen other people interact or read in books, things like that. I was just talking to my 5th, 6th grade teacher on the phone last summer, and she said, I was so mad that you guys all read those Beverly Cleary books where she taught you that, fighting was something that you had to do sometimes, and I'm like, I don't remember that from Beverly Cleary books, but she was basically arguing that these books had given us social scripts for what we have to do. Once you get to a certain point, you have to follow through, and she was very not happy about us all reading these same books. I thought that was funny. Here we are 50 years later or something, and she remembers it. Okay, I just really significantly aged myself. I just really want you to know I can't do math. It was psychology math. I think it was 40 years ago, though, so it's still probably too long. Anyway, frustration is another factor that can lead to aggression, right? If you're frustrated, you've been trying to do your math homework all this time, and you're never going to get done and whatever, and then your mom's like, have you not taken out the garbage yet? You're like, ugh! Right? You guys probably can completely relate to that, right? Like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. So frustration can oftentimes lead to aggression because of the sort of mood it's gotten you in already, or I guess maybe the high blood pressure that we're experiencing or something. I don't know if kids get high blood pressure, but that kind of frustration can lead us to lash out. And so aggression has lots of factors that contribute to it. It's not just whether you've got testosterone coursing through your veins. It's a whole bunch of other things having to do with the environment and your upbringing and what you've been reinforced for in the past and what's happening right at this moment and all sorts of things. So it's a really complicated outcome. All right, so I thought it would be helpful if you went ahead and took a look at the Bandura Bobo doll experiment, and then I will see you on the other side of that.